During a 6.5-hour spacewalk on the International Space Station in 2017, astronauts Peggy Whitson and Shane Kimbrough observed clumsiness that would not be a problem on Earth, but may cause severe issues in space. A 162 cm by 59 cm cloth debris screen from the docking port weighed 8 kilos and was dropped. That debris shield mattered. It was designed to shelter the ship's docking port from severe temperatures and orbital debris, a necessity for the ISS. The Whipple shield exploited space debris' hypervelocity. As debris energy spreads over a longer area, thin shield layers annihilate it into small bits that the inner shield can endure. Mission Control began work on Earth, because they have copies of every nut, bolt, and cloth in space. Mission Control allowed Whitson and Kimbrough to use wire ties and a different material to replace the Whipple shield until a rocket could deliver it. After solving that issue, there remained one more: whether the missing shield piece would hit the space station. The shield was intensively studied for 2 orbits before showing no risk of hitting the ISS. Kimbrough and Whitson could relax, and Whitson could enjoy having done the most spacewalks of any woman. 2. How often do astronauts lose their grasp on tools and other things in microgravity? How expensive are periodic butterfingers on the ISS? What if the new space junk hits the station or another satellite? NASA and astronauts must prepare for these circumstances. Like anything else, accidents happen. Astronauts have lost things on spacewalks before, including the shield. After returning to Earth in 2006, astronaut Piers Seller found a number of spatulas in his office after dropping one on the space station. Another astronaut lost a camera that year. Another astronaut lost a tool bag in 2008 after a grease gun explosion. Oh, we lost a tool. Items might get misplaced due to the difficulty of handling little objects when wearing big gloves. Drew Fustel has the second longest EVA duration among U.S. astronauts, having gone to space 3 times for 226 days and done 9 spacewalks. He knows the challenges of working in a 160-kilogram spacesuit. It feels like wearing mechanics gloves with welding gloves on top to obtain tactile input with your fingertips and hands. Exposed to that atmosphere is the only way to train that. NASA trains astronauts by having them wear their suits in a huge pool with an underwater ISS replica. In their suits, they learn how to use repair equipment, move things, and rescue team members while on Earth. It's a wonderful analogy, but not everyone has enough practice time. During the shuttle era, we trained at a 10-to-1 ratio, meaning we practiced a technique or task 10 times underwater for every hour in space. This allowed us to build a knowledge of what to expect from our hands when working with space objects. We see substantially less of it now, probably 2 to 3 to 1, making exposure harder and more challenging. Outside the station on an EVA, astronauts have many precautions for themselves and their gear. They're always hooked to short wire tethers on retractable reels that self-retract 17 or 26 meters, allowing astronauts to roam around without drifting. In addition, they'll have 1.5-meter local tethers that keep them near enough to the station to utilize both hands for a given task, but give them greater flexibility to maneuver. Tool bag and other gear tethers are also included. Using tethers, we try to connect every object we take outside the airlock. Tethers can be difficult to maintain, and it can be alarming when an object is held without a tether due to bumping, accidental removal, or lack of attachment. I've held objects without tethers and expecting them to have them. You reach down carefully and locate a tether someplace to link back to that thing. Fustel lost an instrument during his 8th spacewalk on March 2018. In the process of installing cameras and wireless communication equipment close to a docking port and fixing a loose component on a solar array blanket box, he misplaced a large trash tie-like wire tie. He removed the wire tie's tether, but its jaws were still open and it floated away. There have been crew members who have lunged after objects. If you have a short tether, you won't lunge very far, but if you have a long tether, you'll travel 55 or 85 feet before the tether hopefully stops you, and you may or may not have reached the object floating away from you. However, I was linked to a foot constraint, so I could not move and watch this item drift away. At that point, all you can do is call Mission Control and say I've lost an object. This is what it was, how large it is, the direction it's traveling, and how fast I think it's going, and that data gets reported to our tracking officers at Mission Control and pretty much around the entire space debris network, which exists not only in the US, but internationally to track undetected objects in space. As with the drop shield in 2017, NASA had to constantly monitor the tiny wire tie's trajectory, which was more problematic despite being smaller. I was told after the loss of my wire tie that for the first time in history, a satellite had to change its orbital altitude because of a free-floating object in space for fear of damage to the satellite. That object, my wire tie, was floating around and was about to collide with a satellite that was important to someone. A wire knot might destroy a space station module or any space equipment. This debris problem extends beyond a few EVA incidents with astronauts losing items. NASA usually returns everything from spacewalks. Sputnik's 1957 launch started the space race, and debris has been piling up around Earth ever since. NASA established the Orbital Debris Program in 1979 to track tiny items that may damage spacecraft from satellites and failed rockets. This initiative employs ground and space-based observation methods, like the USA of Space Surveillance Network, which tracks bigger space objects. Ground-based radar like Goldstone Solar System radar may identify smaller objects. It would be hard to track all the debris. About 23,000 objects larger than a baseball orbit Earth, 500,000 1-centimeter pieces, and 100 million microfragments 1 millimeter or larger. 5. Computer models log and track space debris, alerting controllers to collisions and allowing avoidance strategies. When a collision is suspected, the ISS manages risk. An imagined cage surrounds the ISS, 0.75 kilometers deep and 50 kilometers square. Track debris that passes through this exclusion zone alerts mission control. Then comes rigorous risk analysis. Yellow warnings are sent to the ISS if a collision is 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 100,000. Avoidance maneuvers are required if they do not conflict with mission goals. This may be as easy as disrupting microgravity studies. More than 1 in 10,000 risks 6 trigger a red alarm, and the International Space Station must respond regardless of mission goals. All NASA spacecraft have exclusion zones. On March 29, 2012, the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope team received an automatic email notice, informing them of an anticipated 200-meter encounter between Fermi and decommissioned Russian spy spacecraft Cosmos 1805. To avoid a collision, they had to abandon their objective and position their thrusters to deal with the satellite in their direction for a 1-second burn. Debris shields are needed because even the smallest debris, like a peeling paint chip, can harm a rocket or the ISS at high speeds. Tracking material this small is difficult, like the 2017 drop, which ironically became debris. Due to air resistance at this altitude, the debris shield deorbited faster since it was big and light. The ISS had to undertake boost burns to maintain its orbit. Working outside the space station makes it harder to lose larger goods, adds Fustel. If you release an 800-pound item without a tether, it won't move. It won't move if you bump it with your hand, since you can't put enough force into it. However, a little metal wire tie is simple to flick or bump, and it will fly away quicker than you can reach it.